We, are you guys seeing the big screen itself, or what are you guys seeing? Because I went to play the slide. Is the big screen? Okay, so no slides or whatever. All right, so okay, guys, you guys have been hearing a lot on DeFi and new farming and all that stuff. In the last few months, things have gotten really crazy, and you have seen a lot of sushi coins, food coins, cheese, and everything is all over the place. But it's a very important thing that's happening right now, and this is my presentation will just be an quick overview on what's really happening, why it's important, and if you want to partake in it, how to go about it, blah, blah, blah. So, in summary, a crash course on the evolution of magic internet money. Let's begin. All right, quickly. What is DeFi? You guys probably heard it. It's pretty much decentralized finance, piecing together different pieces, includes like all the smart contract stuff that different protocols have been working on, from lending money in lending markets, insurance, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Think of them as money Legos that will eventually work for each other. And it's very exciting because right now Ethereum is the only place that we are seeing this grow so much right now. Okay, why is DeFi important? Okay, prior to DeFi, we only have simple ways of dealing with the assets and the money that we have. It's either A, you go to an exchange, you buy and sell, and then you hodl the asset itself. So, for example, maybe you can just hodl ETH, and that's about it. You can't really do much about it. Only when the time that comes to sell, you sell. But now, your idle magic money can actually can be put to good use. You can with the I think Maker, yeah, Maker was the first one. They introduced like a collateralization. So you can put in your ETH, you can generate DAI, then you can use that DAI, go do something else, maybe pay for your mortgage, or you can even buy back more ETH, which is leveraging in a different way. And yeah, since Maker, we have come to a new era of DeFi with youth farming. And this youth farming really opens up the new doors to managing your portfolio strategies. So like one of the common things people were doing when there's a bear market is to sell off to stable coins, their assets. But now with those stable coins, you can actually do something about it again. You can then actually put the stable coins to maybe curve, and then you farm and then dump the curve and do something else with it. You can use your stable coins to borrow against different things. Various means. It's really up to how an individual want to introduce it to their portfolio strategy. And also another interesting thing is, as I mentioned earlier, if you have DAI, DAI is just DAI, you can't really do much with it. It's one DAI is one DAI. But now we have a yield-bearing DAI, meaning to say, this happens when you actually deposit, say, I think ADAI would be Aave's DAI. You deposit DAI into a money lending protocol, and then it generates interest for you. It pays you interest for the DAI that you have given to them. Now, when you have this ADAI, and because it's a token, this ADAI suddenly becomes very, and you can transfer it. You can transfer this token. So, technically speaking, this is a much more interesting version of DAI that you want to have, because at any point in time, it's always it's always giving you interest, and you can transfer it to anyone. So then it's tradable. And once it's tradable, yeah, it's up to the market to determine how much it should be. And of course, you can do many different things with that just by this alone. Ultimately, all these things that's going around, it brings in a lot of liquidity into the space. We have not seen, at least in the tech space, we have not seen liquidity flow as such, and people are getting excited. It's good. Liquidity is pouring in, and then new assets, these new protocols that are introduced went from zero market cap, like for example, Wi-Fi. YFI, or you could call it Yuan Dot Finance. It went from worth 0 to, I think right now might be worth $35,000 or so, or at least above $30,000. This has created new millionaires as well, and this has created new wealth, and this new wealth can then be circulated within the ecosystem. It can also be used as collateral. Now, one Wi-Fi can, because of how much it's worth, it's suddenly a nice collateral to use to power whatever things that are in the ecosystem. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is why it's very important. Now, there's a lot going on. There's like way too much going on. Sometimes it's very easy to get lost amongst all these things. But I think this picture here provided by the blog is a very good overview of the different projects that are in the space, the segments that are in the whole DeFi ecosystem. You range from prediction markets to the derivatives to the DAOs to the insurances. You have like changes in liquidity, credit lending, stablecoins, infrastructure-wise, banking, payments. Wow, there's just a lot. Some of the projects you might recognize because either A, we work with them, or they might be very famous in the space. For example, in the derivatives, it will be Synthetics, one of the unicorns in the space. And I think what's there? Where is, well, there's a lot. Okay, Ren, which is also an interesting one. It brings BTC into the space as well, into the Ethereum space, and actually gives BTC a use case other than being just a digital gold. What else we have here? Man, there's just so many. Yeah, you probably see Curve somewhere. Yeah, I'm a bit lost here. Oh, Aave, yes, Aave in the credit lending. Then of course Compound, which kickstarted pretty much the DeFi youth farming wave. Okay, I'll just give you guys a little bit more time, and I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so the DeFi space, or at least, yeah, the DeFi space, it wasn't until we actually spent a very, very, very long time since the bear market. I think we were in 2 years in the bear market. The bear market really slowed down a lot of the traction that we could have seen. But it wasn't until like I think this mid-June that things really picked up, and we have the total value locked right now in the DeFi space is around $9.86 billion, which is a lot when you consider that in mid-June we are only having 1.2 billion. So it's pretty much 8x right now. I think it's and this 9.86 billion, when you look at the total market cap of the entire space, it's really peanuts. It's really peanuts. I mean, you have projects like what? I think EOS. I don't know whether it's still worth 4 billion or maybe it's 3 billion. So yeah, it's like only 3 EOS combined together, or less than that. Yeah. So it's really a very tiny space, but with a lot of projects in this space that's could be worth much more. Anyways, so yeah, during this time, the interesting unicorns that popped out were Aave, which is land, and of course Synthetics, as I mentioned earlier. Fun fact, their token price actually did 100x from the bottom. So whoever was that fortunate, whoever was still in the space hunting for good stuff and followed the community was heavily, or is heavily rewarded right now today. So that's interesting. Now you might be wondering, how the heck did we get so much total value lock in the span of like, it's not even 6 months, it's only 3 months. Now it all started because of Compound Finance. They don't have a token and have been operating around for some time. They were, I think, mainly sponsored by VC money. So once they launched the protocol, and they have acquired quite a lot of liquidity then as well. It takes time to test out and know that people are comfortable and safe with Compound. And if you're not familiar with Compound, is basically a money lending protocol. It allows borrowing and lending of assets. And yeah, so if you are a lender, you just maybe deposit ETH in it and then earn some interest on that ETH. And if you are a borrower, you just borrow what you need from there. Of course, you need to supply a collateral to it. So yeah, just basic money market. So yes, with the launch of Compound, that's when things really picked up. Their yield farming methods, or rather liquidity mining, which is pretty much a yield farming. Once they introduced this token, which is a token for their governance, and so by providing liquidity to it, you can actually you get a portion of the tokens that they issue up. So then you can take that tokens to, I don't know, maybe sell it or maybe just partake in governance. It's really up to you. But there's money to be made. So that's why liquidity flowed. So after Compound, it started with Compound. Then the next big thing was, I think, Wi-Fi, which is kind of a stealth launch as well. Wi-Fi uses a lot of Curve.finance in order to partake in this, and also uses a lot of, I think, Balancer to partake in this. I won't be going too much in details into the aspect of it now. Maybe I'll go into it in the question section. So after that, it was Yam. Then Yam sparked a huge amount of liquidity coming in as well. Then Curve also started around the same time, also like 2 days after it, I think. Yeah, I think it's 2 days after it. And then it kicked off more liquidity. And then, of course, most recent, we have the sushi liquidity mining, the sushi swap stuff that's going on. Very exciting. You can read up on the latest article on that to get yourself educated on that, on what's going on. And then we have where we are at now. I mean, liquidity did drop a little bit, but let's see how things will be going. Okay, so when we talk about liquidity mining and when we talk about all these new protocols, we are mainly looking at this thing called yield farming, right? To some, it might be foreign. To some, you might be familiar with it, really. But in essence, yield farming just means chasing the best yields, using the capital that you have, and hunting for. And best yields means the highest APY possible. And of course, in doing so, you want to reduce the risk. So you're not buying anything at all. You're just providing capital, and in return, the protocol gives you back or rewards you for that capital. Not all protocols work the same. Not all protocols are going to be as safe as another. There are many risks involved. I will go into those risks and barriers later on. But many times, this yield farming methods would involve strategies that you will see a combination of different protocols working together, such like Compound, Curve, Synthetics, Uniswap, and Balancer. The usual suspects that some of you might have already been using to begin with. Most of us will be very familiar with Uniswap because that's like the decentralized DEX the go-to DEX, basically. If anyone don't really like centralized exchanges, that's the one to go to. And of course, Compound, money lending market you're familiar with. Yeah, so yeah, you get governance tokens, which you can sell or you can participate in governance. And this is actually an important thing. For the short-term yield farmers, or actually, well, pretty much yield farmers are short-term. Yeah, they chase where yield is, and they tend not to stick around for long. Because the only loyalty they have is to the yield. That's it. Can an investor become a yield farmer as well? Yes, they can. They can yield farm, but not dump it, and then just accumulate as much as possible the governance tokens if they see value in the protocol and want to influence a certain protocol. Protocols, actions. So this would then come into a very important play when a certain protocol is worth a lot of money. So, like for example, I don't know, maybe Curve. Curve is having, I think, 1 billion TPL, I think, or around there, or even Sushi Swap is having around 1 billion liquidity in there. And when you have that huge amount of money, anything, and if it's governed by the governance tokens that you can vote and whatnot, then yeah, it would mean that if you have certain agendas, or maybe you would like a certain coin to be supported by the pool itself, or to be introduced to the protocol, you can vote upon it. And yeah, on a simple level, that's what you can do. But on a higher tier level, right, it becomes a whale game. So if certain whales can actually manipulate or at least pull together tokens to fit their agendas. There are stories behind it, but I'm not going to go into details for now. So when we talk about APY, the use and everything, you have the very simple ones that goes from like some of them, like for example, in compound, they don't even give you much for the simple interest. You can range from like a 0 to 20%. Not sure why someone want to do that. And then to the not bad ones, like 50 to 200%. Might sound a lot to many people, especially if you look at, I don't know, the traditional finance space, or in fact, even in your real life, your banks. When you take just a dollar or whatever wage that you have, you have it in your bank, it does nothing. At most, they give you really the best kind of interest. It's like 1%. To some, it might sound like a lot, but yeah, in this space right now, we are seeing this revolution that's making it very hard for people not to keep money in banks anymore, if they know. But of course, in saying that there are certain risks that one will have to undertake, actually a lot of risks. So yeah, that's the not bad one. And then of course, there's the insane news that are out there. That ranges from like 500% and above. Yes, you are reading it correct. That's 9999999%. It sounds insane, and it is. And usually things around that spectrum is very scammy. And it becomes a game of quick hot potato and rug pull. It depends on like whether or not you make that quick buck before you get out. That is where the degenerates tend to play. But of course, when you go to the lower tier of the like a boss range, which is 500%, that's very achievable. Things like sushi swap right now actually does give that kind of view. It has been running for I think like what almost 2 weeks now. When it first started, in fact, I think it gave 12,000% for one of the pools, and then on average things were around like 1,000%. But yeah, more stories on that later. Okay, if you're wondering where do I begin with all this yield farming and whatnot, there are 3 simple things, and I'm using this illustration as just very simplified, very simplified way of attempting to enter this space. So there are 3 things, as I mentioned. You can either participate in a money market protocol, like you can participate in a money market protocol like Cream Finance or Compound Finance. Cream is the one that looks like Pac-Man in turquoise. Yeah. So when you participate in these money lending protocols or money market protocols, you get a token. So you get, of course, their governance tokens, and as I explained earlier, you supply capital to it or you borrow money from it. So either way, when you are participating in this, you get the governance tokens, which is a good incentivification for anyone to use the protocol. You can also supply capital. If you have a bunch of stable coins, you want to provide liquidity somewhere, especially using Curve or even Balancer. Yeah, you're becoming a liquidity provider for these protocols. So in Curve, the usual and easiest method is to select a pool from Curve. There are several pools. I think Y pool is the most famous one. And inside consists of, I think, DAI, USDC, USDT, and I think TUSD, if I'm not wrong. It's basically a stablecoin pool. And when you are a liquidity provider to such pools, it will say, for example, if you take USDT, and you supply it to this particular Y pool, it's going to take maybe 100,000 USDT and then split it equal portion um, into the different components that I mentioned, like DAI, USDC, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. Of course, the different weightage of the pool in the pool, there's different weightages. You might find like there's very little DAI and there's a lot of USDT. So of course, when you are supplying DAI, then DAI becomes very valuable. You might end up with more portion of the pool to your share. And in exchange for that, when you do that, you can actually the system actually rewards you with Curve tokens when you stick the Curve tokens on the Curve protocol. That's one part. And Curve is right now, I think, the best place to exchange your stable coins. And I think even some centralized exchanges are using it as a proxy to do liquidity swapping for stable coins. Balancer is liquidity. Balancer is AMM, which is the black color little logo in the middle under the supplying capital category. And you guys might be familiar with Uniswap. So Uniswap has a 50/50% weightage pool. So if you supply like I don't know, maybe sand, it has to be 50% worth of sand and then 50% of ETH. If it's $100,000 value, that means it's going to be 50,000 on one end and the other. Balancer makes it different by having different weightage pools, so you can find yourself in a pool and you can create a pool yourself as well. Balancer allows a weightage difference whereby you can maybe go 95% sand and 5% ETH, so that this is important. Why? So it's because of impermanent loss for people. For people that are looking to participate in yield farming as a liquidity provider in AMMs, especially like Balancer or Uniswap, they have to beware of impermanent loss. So one example using Uniswap would be, I think Link, the one by Bank, or there's one article talks about how Link has appreciated maybe 800 or 700%, but because all this while, if you are a liquidity provider for this pool, you would end up with actually less Link and more ETH as the price of Link appreciates, and the any person that's looking to arbitrage will actually sell you ETH to take more Link. So in a scenario like that, it's actually much more. It's better for the individual not to even supply Link to begin with. You would have ended up with like 7 times his money, whereas I think in that scenario he actually ended up in way less. As to the full percentage, I can't calculate it all off my head, but I think that's a very good impermanent loss article that you guys can read on, or if you guys need it, I will try to find it and then I'll pass it to you guys. So that's that concludes with the supplying capital part, and then there's the staking LP tokens part. Why I didn't put why I said it relies on Uniswap. Uniswap doesn't have a token right now, but Uniswap is a very good place for providing liquidity and to participate as a liquidity provider. And 2 new protocols have come up recently that actually uses that. One is Yam.finance, which is the little yam thing that you see there. It's very cute. And then the other one is Sushi. So it seems like Uniswap is a place for food related items. So yes, these 2 things leverages on the Uniswap existing infrastructure. And actually just provides people an opportunity to earn the tokens on that end. And since Uniswap is a very popular one, you have seen a lot of people get into it. Of course, the Yam.finance, it was very exciting. It was a lot of people were looking at it, and actually smart people were actually behind it as well. But it was a failed experiment because I think there was some code that they didn't take into consideration when things eventually happen. I think also YAM Finance is a mix of Ampleforth element thrown into it, whereby the amount of YAM will expand or contract based on I think the price itself. But yeah, interesting stuff. You should go and check out Ampleforth and then read up on YAM if you're interested in knowing more about that. The most recent one, Sushi Swap, big hoo-ha over it, Vampire Protocol, apparently drained a lot of the liquidity away from Uniswap. Now is the migration is over, and now it's running on its own Sushi Swap protocol. You can read more about it in the latest article that was written on Sandbase, the insights section. Now, that is a very simple way of looking where you can participate in yield farming. Let me just go back there. Yeah, this is the very simple way of participating in yield farming. You can choose A, B, or C. It's up to you. Now, one of the key things when you come to DeFi and yield farming is the composability, which means like in essence, it's just about how you can have different blocks or Lego blocks that you can combine and form it yourself to make it the best strategy possible, or what mix and match what you need to reach your goal at the end of the day. And it's fascinating because right now we have in the space many different protocols in this DeFi segment. And if you know what you're doing, you can actually plug and play and mix and match and have really amazing strategies that can supercharge your portfolio. In the next example, I'm going to show you a considered simple way of doing it when you're putting Lego blocks together. Now, the same thing as before, but instead of looking them as individual blocks, we can in fact start from the lending and borrowing side, right? You can say maybe, I don't know, you can supply ETH into a compound and then borrow whatever assets that are available in compound. Say maybe, I don't know, if I think I don't know, maybe Curve or whichever, and then you go to be a liquidity provider for it in Uniswap, or even in the example of Curve, there you would be going to compound, supplying it with ETH, borrowing WBTC, supplying WBTC to Curve, and then yeah, using that, and I think you can get that and stake if there's another protocol that supports your staking of the Curve pools token representation of that particular pool. In this case, I think it would be YWBTC or like YS pool or something like that, which I think Cream Finance supports it. I know it's a whole bunch of things that can get very messy, because it can get very messy. Yeah. Yeah. Then yeah, you end up in staking the whatever LP that you have provided, and then you can take those whatever tokens, the endpoint tokens, and sell it into ETH. And you repeat that cycle all over again at the start. Now you might be wondering, what's that little logo at the top of each block? That is Nexus Mutual. Because at every block that you're doing this thing, you're increasing your risk as you go along. Any of this Lego block fails, and depending on how you're layering them, it would mean catastrophic implications for your other blocks. So, for example, the middle one is failing, then it's going to impact the one on the left, yeah, or the right side. If it fails, it's going to impact the other two before it. So you want to protect it with something like Nexus Mutual, where the Nexus Mutual basically is a protocol that provides insurance on they are the underwriters for insurance to whatever protocols or smart contracts that you wish to insure. And I think in order for that to happen, the protocol needs to, I think, via their members, they have to incentivize people to provide ETH into Nexus Mutual so that that ETH is then ensuring whatever protocol that of your choosing. It's a very interesting project. Do read up upon it. Don't think I have the time to go through that detail here, but yeah, that's one part of the Lego block strategy that anyone can actually use and attach to it, so that you are ensuring your entire Lego block play. This might not be the best example right now because, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of layers and things like that. But I think one way, and it can be very complex right now with the different strategies that go on. So one way the space have made it easy, or at least one project in the space that's making it very easy for people to attempt at composability and making Lego blocks out of it is YFI, or as you may know it as Ian.finance. So they created these things called vaults. And vaults basically just need you to input a certain asset in, and then you don't have to think about anything else, what happens in between. And all you do is just collect your U. That simplifies everything for the individual. It pretty much does the same thing as I mentioned before, but yeah, the user doesn't need to bother too much about that. So one of the strategies in this in Yen.finance vault would be the ETH strategy. User deposits maybe over here 100 ETH, and then it goes into the Yen vault, which then takes that ETH and lends it out to MakerDAO, generates DAI equivalent to it, which is in this example will be $25,000 worth of DAI, which is then deposited into the YDAI vault, which then goes into the curve pool. When it supplies to the curve pool, remember I mentioned before the curve Y pool consists of DAI, USDT, USDC, and TUSD. And since you're supplying DAI, which is one of the most valuable stablecoins out there right now because of the limits of it, it then, of course, will reward you more because you support, because you provided DAI into it. It then gives you a representation of your share of DAI, or at least your share in that Y pool. In this way, in this version, it's called Y curve. So when you get a Y curve, the system automatically puts that, which is a liquidity provider token. It takes that Y curve and sticks and stick it into the curve DAO, I think, yeah, curve DAO, which you are then rewarded the final token curve. So amongst all this process, your end product at the end, just before you sell it, what you're getting is curve, right? So then the YDAI vault is actually taking that curve, exchanging it for ETH. It automates this whole process for you. And then I think it repeats the process all the way at the start. So it keeps looping and looping on this end. But I think the protocol that's taking the whole brunt of everything and subsidizing or paying the use is actually Curve, poor guy. But for this strategy, this is how it works. In Yen.finance, the vaults, there are many different strategies that are written by not just Andre himself. Yeah, I don't think it's written by him himself only. There are other individuals or community members that actually introduce different strategies to it. And of course, by introducing these strategies, they do get rewarded. People can actually pay them, or I think they or vote to pay them, or something like that from other means or from some treasury somewhere. So yeah, it's quite lucrative. I think, in fact, I think that this e-vault is written by a community member. So yeah, but of course, with these strategies, there comes audit for it, whether it works and whatnot and all that stuff. Also, do note that in order to partake in this vaults, I think there's a fee that will be taken if you withdraw. So yeah, but for more information, just check out the Yen.finance vaults, or just read up on some of their articles. That would make sense. So yeah, this is a easy way for anyone to participate if they don't want to do this thing. This is very manual work. This requires you to be the strategy guy. This, on the other hand, just requires you one click, get in, that's it. The U might not be the highest, but it's easy and good enough. Now, with all these things that we talked about, it sounds all good. APY is high, it's fun, it's cute with all the food and all the different kinds of memes, everything. But there are inherent risks and barriers to all these things I've just talked about. As you know, the space is very nascent. In fact, the whole crypto space is very, very young. When the risk involved when we look at yield farming would be like smart contract exploits, bugs, hacks, and this have happened. This has certainly happened. I've seen, like, I think most recent one is kimchi.finance. They were promising, like, I think 50,000% or 100,000% kind of yield, but they didn't tell anyone that in their smart contract they were able to infinitely mint the kimchi token. So this obviously dilutes the whole darn process of things. The point of at least having a proper protocol is at least have a certain limited supply or at least a slow emission rate so that it doesn't dilute the market share and screw everybody. So yeah, that got rug pulled, and of course you got smart contract. I think bugs, like I think Yam.finance, they ran into that. It's a legit thing, but then they overlooked that particular bug. I can't remember what bug it was. Then of course, where there's collateral getting liquidated. As you know, if you're doing the money market protocol, if you're doing borrowing and lending, you supply a collateral, and if you over leverage yourself by being very confident that, okay, ETH is going to appreciate, therefore I'm going to borrow to the maximum that I can. Then yeah, and then you go on to do your different Lego money block methods, and and you eventually get liquidated on that end, because as you know, ETH is quite volatile, especially if you're doing yield farming when ETH is at the top, like maybe around 470 or 460. Now I think you'll be experiencing a lot of pain, and you'll be getting very worried whether you're getting liquidated for whatever collaterals that you have, and you then have to cancel everything that you're doing, pay back everything along the entire Lego block. Yeah, so that's one thing. Stablecoin depegging. So this is in the example of Curve. As I mentioned before, the Y pool has 4 different coins. They try to be equal-weighted, but in the event that, say, I think you can trust DAI, you can trust USDC, TUSD should be, you can trust it. USDT, some people might not be very comfortable with it, although it's the most liquid coin that we deal with, and I mean, most people do use it a lot, but for some, there remains a question mark because you do not know whether USDT is fully backed. For DAI, it doesn't matter because it's by algo, so you trust the code. It will eventually peg itself to $1 based on ETH. So yeah, if one day USDT is of no value, then suddenly all the 3 other coins that are within the pool will then be exchanged, or the smart people will just exchange all their USDT for the other 3 coins, and therefore rendering the entire pool useless. No one's going to put any more coins in it, since USDT is useless in that pool. You'll find yourself ending up with a lot of USDT. So yeah, there's such a risk. Impermanent loss, as I mentioned earlier, it will apply to the liquidity providers. I think I gave an example on link/ETH already, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Now, the DeFi bubble. This is a very real concern because we are growing a lot at a very fast rate, and people are just going around like just throwing money at everything that they can. It's kind of like the ICO bubble. They're just throwing money where they can because there is really good money to be made right now in the space. And if you know what you're doing, and if you know which protocol are safe enough and whatnot, right, you can make a lot of money. I'll give you an example also. Like I think with Sushi Swap. We have seen SBF Alameda, which is the owner of FTX.com, kind of like the other CZ, or very smart CZ. He actually took, I think, around $10 million and went to provide liquidity on Uniswap just so he can mine sushi. And that risk actually paid off. I think at the end of the day, he ended up with like around 50 million worth of assets, which of course, and as anyone looking to remove, and as any logical trader or investor, he offloads it, which is fine. That's a fair call for him, and he did it well. So yes, there's huge money to be made. There's also huge money to be lost as well. As we chase all this stuff, right? And as if you think about like the different risks that was mentioned before all these things, like impermanent loss, smart contract, blah blah blah, all this risks, right? If you package them up together and you package them up into the Lego blocks, you are treading on very dangerous grounds, which is similar to the financial crisis back in the 2000s. The mortgage crisis itself, where people are selling a synthetic version of this thing, which then is selling to another fella for this thing, so on and so forth. And then eventually, turns out that, hey, everything we have is actually vapor money or over leveraging way too much. Very real thing that can happen, but I don't think we are seeing it now. It just feels like it's early in that stage, but people need to be aware. Now, that's the risk, the barriers. If you participated in this before, the gas fees are very, 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 very high. It's ridiculously high. And some of you might be doing just normal transactions and wondering why the heck in the past month it has been so hard to transfer anything to yourself, and you're not even participating in DeFi or U farming. That's because because of all these different protocols that came up, and people are just changing things here and there, moving money where they can, chasing for the next best yield. You farmers are always moving around, making sure that they have the best yield. Yes, that's because of these things that are going on, and because of that, it drives up the gas fees, which is damn ridiculous. On average, you're looking at, like in this example, would be like for the curve, in order for you to remove your stake in curve and your liquidity from curve, it costs on average around $200. So this then suddenly becomes not very friendly for the retail. Okay, if you are looking to like maybe put $1,000 in and hope that your money grows with an APY of around 100%, that's not a lot. That's not really a lot. So in one transaction or two transactions, it would have eat up at least 40% of your initial capital. So you're left with $600 to do whatever things. But if you're a whale, or if you're looking to play for it, and whether it's worth it to even undertake the endeavor. Of course, this will then also consolidates every single move that a person has in mind into one move. That's why the Yen finance is much easier. When you do that, you don't have to think about all this stuff. Yeah. The current state of Ethereum, as you know, it's not very good. L1 is because of all these things, gas fees are up, and that's because of the congestion that we are seeing. And even if you want to talk about like trading DEXs on Uniswap, it's very expensive to trade there. For one, it's very slow to trade there. You can have transactions that are pending for days, or like stuck transactions that you need to then you need to send another transaction to yourself to cancel the previous pending transactions. And in a space that is, especially when it comes to trading or come to getting the best opportunity and actually exploiting that opportunity, time is of the essence. And we, any person that's doing that, right, cannot afford to have slow transactions at all. Cannot even have uncertainty on like whether my transaction is going to be pending or whether it's going to go through. So yeah, Ethereum has to improve on that. There are other challenges in the space that are appearing, other L1s that are much faster than Ethereum. Like I think Solana is another one, Polkadot and Cosmos. They are having their own DeFi related things happening. And even I think today or yesterday, Binance have announced their smart, they have their smart chain. They have announced their DeFi initiatives and what they intend to do. So all these are becoming competitors, and if the DeFi space is going to grow and if it does attract a lot of liquidity, um, it's a very real concern for Ethereum. So Ethereum will have to I don't think the POS is going to come anytime soon. So L2s will really have to step up to resolve this for Ethereum. And of course, finally, the DeFi U farming space, um, the know-how or the knowledge and the skill sets required, uh, it's actually a very full-time thing. Uh, from sniffing out what is good and being in the correct inner circles to have a dialogue on those things, to having the capital to do such things, to know what strategies you should deploy, all the way to the end game. It is expert level kind of thing. Simple retail folks, they can play it like I mentioned before, but they are not going to yield too much on this. So yeah, this all serves as barriers to the adoption of things. Yeah, and I think that's all for now. And yeah, everything I've said, hopefully you guys got some little sense of it. I might not make sense in some ways or another, but yeah, at the end of the day, this DeFi thing, it might sound like we are at the top or whatever, but I think this is just really the beginning because of the small little market cap. And a lot more to grow. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Sorry.
I have one question. So first, thank you for the overview. There's one thing which is not clear to me. So you are talking about one side of the equation. So you have money and you put it somewhere and then you get more money. So what is this magic happening which makes the more money? I mean, in the normal world, if I put money in a bank, I get interest, and usually that interest comes from people on the other side that lend the money to do something and eventually give some interest to the bank in exchange. So someone buys a house, they get a mortgage, and then they eventually will pay this mortgage with interest. And if I deposit money in the bank, I get part of that. So that's how we imagine the system works in the normal world, although maybe that's not completely precise picture. But here it is not clear to me where is this yield coming from?
Good question, Zyko. I think to put it really simply, the yield comes from the speculators in the space. Speculators being the traders and everyone that is speculating on tokens, and as you know, like the crypto space, pretty much 90% is about speculation. So like an example would be, why is something worth this much, right? Why is sushi token even worth like $2? And why not $10 and whatnot? At the end of the day, the market decides on that, and because the token itself has a governance function to it. And people that did not actually participate in new farming. And here's the interesting thing as well. People can actually participate in yield farming, get the token, but actually people who knows, right? The traders, they don't even do yield farming. What they do is, as a shortcut, is to buy the underlying token, knowing that that token is going to appreciate in price. So we have that group of people that are willing to do that, which then suddenly pays off your yield because they are the ones buying the token that you're selling. And then there are speculators. Upon those initial first batch of speculators, they are buying it on the assumption that it's going to pump. You can see this whole process if you look at, I think, the sushi token, or in fact Wi-Fi, as it started to be first on, I think, Uniswap. Then suddenly it gets listed on OKX. Then it started to get listed on Huobi. Then it started to get listed on Binance. And now today, I think it was today, or yeah, Coinbase. If you look at the whole process and you just chart it along the path of their price action, this is why people are getting paid and why people speculate and where the yield is coming from. Yeah, I think that is in a nutshell where easiest way to explain it.
So it's basically like a pyramid.
Yes, pretty much.
I think what people are speculating on in the end is that those governance tokens will somehow resolve in payment in some form, right? So hopefully some of the liquidity sticks to some of the protocols, and then they can introduce some kind of fee structure. And then if you're the holder of that governance token, you might be the person who receives the fees in the future, right?
Mostly people speculate on the fact that they are not the one who is going to hold the bag. Because there are reasonable valuations. For example, even for sushi, there is real value, but with current emission rate and with current price, the real value is hugely dwarfed by the market cap. So maybe when it somehow a little bit rationalizes, and when the emission rate cuts, because there are already proposals to shrink the block rewards. For example, right now, as an early incentive program, there is 1,000 sushi per block, and they were going to decrease it to 100 per block after initial 10 days. But now there is a proposal to even further decrease it to 50 per block. So there is like rational initiative in that. And I think maybe in the long run, the price will converge with the value, with the real value coming from the swap fees. But there is already a lot of people who bought it at like $10, and it's just insane. So there is already people losing money, because when someone is farming those crazy yields, there has to be someone on the other end who is going to pay for that. Because all these yield farming protocols with like over a couple thousand API, they all have their own token. So, for example, you can take Uniswap, which gives you the fees directly in the form of currency that you are providing. Their yields are maybe like 100% for the most hot pairs, and it's also not for long, because just the volume is so much and the liquidity is not so much. But all these protocols which give like ridiculous yields, all they have their own token. So this yield only bases on the people's belief in the value of this token.
Yep, I think Maxim actually gave a very good overview on that. That is pretty much something about how the protocols work at this level, at least at this point in time, because of the frenzy. Until they can show that the protocol is extracting value on the fees that they collect, then yeah. Any other questions from anyone? If not, I can call it a day.
Yeah, question from a valuation perspective. I mean, I've asked you this in the past, but I think maybe it's good to raise it here. What do you think is the best metrics to value coins like Sushi, but also like other DeFi assets like Ren and Aave, which seem to be the price of these coins in the past couple of months, at least to me, seems to be very much tied to the total value locked, or in just the general performance of the underlying platform rather than any sort of on-chain activity, or at least to a lesser extent the on-chain activity of these coins. So what do you use, or what do you think are the best sort of metrics and indicators to track the value and the potential for these coins?
Okay, good question. We just okay. I think for the basic starters, it would be the total value lock to begin with, because you want to know like how much value is this protocol at least having, and what they are doing with that liquidity that they have there. So usually what it translates to is like, how is this liquidity being used, and from there a portion of the fees that's distributed to the protocol's governance holders. So then that like what we talked about previously, it's kind of like the equity, the dividends rather, that's distributed. But in a space like ours, a lot of things are very far-fetched, and the actual valuation of the asset may not be fully equate to what revenue it's generating and whatnot. Some are actually over-valuated, some are under-valuated. But I think at this point in time, this is the closest thing that we can come to looking at the system. So like, for example, RBA right now is holding 1.5 billion. And it's a money lending protocol. So all its revenue, I think, comes from a certain part of the fees from the end. And it's worth what? I can't remember now how much is RBA worth really. How much is RBA worth? Did they show it to me? Token. Market cap is less than $1 billion. Naturally, the market cap should not be too low, lower than the amount of money that they have, I think. But of course, that's just that. Sushi Swap, when you say it, like, how do you measure Sushi Swap's value, right? Besides the TVL, which is the total value lock, for something like Sushi Swap, it's really the amount of fees that's generated. And I think if you were to compare it with, say, Uniswap, right, they are not generating a lot of fees. Right now, is the only reason why value is there is because of the incentive structures that's there. It's not like SushiSwap is having a lot of pairs and generating a lot of fees and making good money for the people that are participating in it. I think this.
Actually, Kelvin, they have like a decent volume. You can open this stats page, and they have something comparable to Uniswap.
Oh, okay. So today is 94,000. Oh wait, 94 million. Oh, that's a shit ton of volume. Not bad.
Yeah.
I was expecting less.
I can add my comments here. For example, like if we are talking particularly about Sushi, I'd say the fair valuation is just the daily fees divided by the daily emission. So the value of the coins that they print daily should be equal to the value of all the fees collected by the platform. So I'm not sure why so many people use total value locked, trying to like measure the value of the protocol, because this value doesn't belong to the protocol, it belongs to the providers. It's not like you're buying shares of the company. So yeah. I'd say it's purely just fees divided by the emission of tokens.
Yep, I agree with that. But the space is funny. It's a funny one. They always tend to use different things. But yeah, for Uniswap or for SushiSwap, that's would be the best way to evaluate it, I guess. Of course, there's also something like what token terminal. They actually put like what's that? I think the revenue that these fees for all these protocols, how they collect. So like over here, actually, yeah. If we talk about the most valuable asset right now, it would be Uniswap, because their annualized revenue is around 390 million. And then of course you got the sushi swap. Then all the way at the end, these guys are not worth a lot of money, but their valuation is highly skewed. So for example, like Aave, this looks very disproportionate in terms of the revenue wise, but I think the nature of the protocol matters as well. Yeah. So yeah, one can actually use this and just to get an idea of, I think, token terminal. So yeah, Dino, hopefully that answers some part of the question. Oh yeah, speaking of which, this are some of the metrics that we should gather if we want to divide this one. But I know I'm working on that.
Thanks, Kelvin.
As a liquidity provider, you're actually undertaking more risk because you are providing liquidity on either side. So like in the case of Uniswap, right? Now, if you go by 50-50, the amount of money that you put in might not be the amount of money that you get out, or at least, yeah, if you were to just hold that token, this is because of impermanent loss. But when it comes to like the lending money markets protocol, you don't run into impermanent loss. Yeah, because you're only supplying one thing and one thing only. Yeah. Any questions, anyone?
I have maybe not a question, but like a comment. So this was a very nice overview, and looking at this, it seems to me that there's actually a lot of material. So I mean, it's just not possible to cover everything, and there's so many details. In if you actually want to not just have an overview, but understand better the whole space. So I think, Gary, you said that Thursday we'll have a talk on some technical talk by Sergey. Correct? Okay. And then I think maybe on Friday, so I asked Lyudmil to give an overview of Uniswap because so he is willing, he wants to also start working into this DeFi area. So this is a good place maybe to start. So, but there's so many more things that we need to, if you want to learn everything, so there's so much more that we have to understand. So it seems to me that like there is enough material for maybe even one, let's say one university course. Like we're not a university, but just really a lot. And I think someone like you, Kelvin, can be the person that can guide that. So we could, I don't know what the others think, so like an idea. We could give talks like this on individual projects, but we need someone that has an overview and understands everything to tell us what will be the interesting talks to give in the next weeks. So then maybe each one can try to understand one small piece, and then we can share all the knowledge. Sorry?
To cover and all that, because yeah, that's like you said, I agree, definitely that's a lot, and I think everything is in my head, but it's going to be terrible if I were to write anything about it because yeah, my head is there's just too much stuff. Yeah, I'm not good at writing.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, but I was thinking maybe you can like a lead. Let's call it a seminar. Like let's call it like a DeFi seminar. So you can decide what topics to cover, and people that are willing to participate can prepare for those topics, something like that. And then we can create more content like this talk. Maybe it will be also interesting outside of Sentiment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can try. But yeah, my head right now is like I don't know where to start. But we will see how, I guess.
Yeah, just of course, just a thought.
Yeah.
Kelvin, and another question from me.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that the total value locked is not just, like plain value of initial like capital. There is a lot of like cross-platform collateralization and leveraging. So is there any estimation about what is the total leverage used in this, in all the DeFi? Because people left and right use things like they put their ETH in the maker vault, then they pull out the DAI and put it in something like maybe Curve or YEarn, and then pull out the CRV or whatever, or YFI, and then put it further down. So is there any calculations on what is the total leverage of the system? Because if the leverage is too high, then we are at risk of big collapse.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Like that's the worry about the DeFi bubble that I mentioned, and I don't think right. To be honest, right now I don't know how much is being leveraged right now because the deeper you go into the money block, right? There are new protocols that come up that actually worth zero, but then suddenly it's worth something, which can then be worth like nothing to begin with as well. So it's expanding and contracting at a strange rate that nobody can really pinpoint. But I think for starters, right, one could take from like where ground zero is, like how much is in I think Compound. There are only a few base level foundations that people are working off from. So like for things like Sushi, it's actually or at least before Sushi's migration, it was actually like what actual assets are in Uniswap, and then this is, I think then you got to check whether these assets are actually borrowed assets from like Aave or like Compound. But I think if you start with those things, right, and you work out the figures on the actual value that is placed into them there, then we might get some sort of understanding. But like I said, it's also a bit difficult because things keep moving everywhere. Yeah. So it's a tricky one, but I'm definitely concerned on the end. Yeah.
Zanka, it might be a very valuable topic for our next report or research, something like that, because it would be super valuable information to the participants of the market, like to know how leveraged the system is and to know when to start worrying or when you can safely continue.
So yeah, I think Alex left. We had a potential partner that is also interested in this topic, and we plan to start developing some metrics to measure that. So Maxim, if you think that we can build a report like this based on our current data, that's awesome. So can we do that, or maybe we need more?
Well, I can't say right now because I don't even have an understanding in my head from which data to calculate that leverage. So it's something that I need to.
I think one way, right? I think one way. Actually, I just thought about it. One way maybe is to, you know how when you borrow or you lend something, you get a proportion of that token. Like say, for example, DAI becomes a DAI, right? So I don't know whether, like, if you measure along those lines, right, the equivalent amount of those tokens can actually help paint some picture, because those are all the undertaking the risk, I guess. Yeah, even like I think the Uniswap BBT tokens also. But anyways, sorry, just speaking straight off my mind.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.